We're just about 2 months away from Election Day, but the legal fights over the race in some states have already started. In Georgia, the state's Republican-controlled election board has passed a rule that will allow election officials to conduct, quote, reasonable inquiries before certifying results. Democrats are suing to block that rule, arguing that the bar for these reasonable inquiries is not clearly set and could allow any one board member to block the certification of election results for any reason. CBS News election law contributor David Becker joins me now. He's also the executive director of the Center for Election Innovation and Research. David, thanks again for being here with us. Is this rule in Georgia, is it warranted, this rule allowing reasonable inquiries?
It's not warranted, and it's a huge departure from what usually happens with certification of elections. It should be understood that certification of elections is just this non-discretionary ministerial act of giving a legal effect to elections, saying that the winner can take office. If there's a legitimate concern about an election, about whether it was valid, whether it was so close and there needs to be recounts, that kind of thing, there's another path for that. It goes to the courts. There's a legal challenge in every state that can be undertaken, where evidence has to be provided, where it's going to be subjected to scrutiny and cross-examination, where a judge is going to hear it. Here, the Georgia State Board of Elections, these are political appointees. Certification is not an opportunity for political appointees to decide they don't like the results and they're going to undertake whatever it's called, a reasonable investigation or whatever, and possibly delay the legal effect of the election results. That's what's problematic here, particularly whereas here, the 3 members of the Georgia State Board that voted for this, it all appeared at a political rally with Donald Trump just a few weeks ago and were specifically called out by him approvingly by name. So it raises serious questions in Georgia. That being said, I don't know if this is going to be upheld by the Georgia courts. It seems there's serious questions about whether this complies with Georgia state law. And I expect that this will not affect ultimate certification of the results, whoever happens to win the election legitimately.
Let me ask you about some other states, although I think I'm going to try and come back to Georgia. In North Carolina, Michigan, and Nevada, there are debates now going over purging the voter rolls of non-eligible voters. Can you explain what a voter poll purging is, and then why is there so much debate about it?
Yeah, many of us who work in this field don't actually use the term purging. There's legitimate list maintenance, which is flagging records to be removed for reasons of people moving away or dying. That happens all the time. It's required under federal law. It's a good thing if it's done right. About 1/3 of all Americans move within any given 4-year period. So it's necessary to keep voter rolls up to date, to constantly do list maintenance. That being said, you don't do list maintenance this close to a major election. In fact, it is prohibited by federal law. Federal law says that there is a 90-day blackout window period between right before any major federal election. And that's because you don't want to accidentally take someone off the rolls when they have little time to get back on the voter list if there was an error. So these efforts are very late. And it raises the question, if they're bringing these lawsuits, these efforts now, well after the blackout period has been initiated, when voter lists are public record, they could have done this at any given point in time. You have a question as to whether this is really about policy or about politics. And it seems like this is more an effort to impact the upcoming election than actually to clean up the voter lists.
Now, I've got a third one in this category. There are moves to take non-citizens, to make non-citizen voting illegal. Isn't it already illegal? And if so, why do we need laws on top of laws to keep non-citizens from voting?
Yeah, it's been illegal for decades. Those laws have been highly effective. Not only that, federal law requires that every single voter who registers to vote in the United States provides ID. That is almost always a driver's license number that is then connected to the citizen's driver's record, their record at the motor vehicles agency. And think about what you need to prove, what you need to bring to a motor vehicles agency when you show up. You need to prove that you're legally here in the United States. Finally, I'll just say that for someone who is here in the United States, who is not a citizen, the chance that they would put their legal presence here in the United States, or if they're undocumented, having risked everything to come here, even undocumented as they are, to paint a big bullseye on themselves and be deported, which is what will happen if they find someone who is a non-citizen registered or voting. That doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And in fact, when we look at the data, the states have the tools necessary to find non-citizens. Georgia has done this. They found literally 0 non-citizens voting in Georgia. Even states that are aligned with Trump, states like Texas, have found just a very small number of even potential non-citizens on their list, well less than 0.03% of their overall voter registration records. This is not a problem in the United States, thankfully. And so this legislation, again, is coming up very late. These efforts to bring up the supposed threat of non-citizens voting, why wasn't this brought up in 2023 or 2021 or 2017 when Donald Trump was president of the United States and could have enacted something to prevent it if it was a real problem?
So, David, as a final question, let me bundle all three of these into a single question. As you've said, in all three instances, there are measures in place to catch bad actors. The laws are on the books. They've been used. There are laws in place. So with that in mind, and the idea that some of these moves are solutions to problems that do not exist, how much do you assess this as a just general mischief making, and that basically people want there to be some doubt so that if the results don't go the way they want, they can say, well, you know, there's some doubt about things, and that leaves them some maneuvering room to perhaps challenge an election, even though there may be no actual grounds to challenge it?
Yeah, it's far worse than mischief making, actually. It is sowing the seeds of doubt in advance of an election. And what this appears to be designed to do is to raise claims about an election being stolen by a candidate who has lost. And those claims will ultimately be unsuccessful. I should stress this. The guardrails in place to protect our democracy and to make sure that the actual real winner takes office are very strong. And I'm 100% confident that whoever wins the presidency will have their hand on the Bible on January 20th, whoever that may be. However, if a losing candidate seeks to spread these lies, and we already know that Donald Trump did this in 2020, it is likely to incite anger and division and even potentially violence, and not just in one place at one time on January 6th at the U.S. Capitol, but now it could inspire anger and threats against election officials at counties all over the country, including some deeply red counties where Republican election officials are telling me and others that they're under constant threat and are incredibly stressed out as a result of the lies that have been spread about our elections.